When you're making a class, how do you choose your secondary weapon in Call of Duty? Do you pick something that fires fast and can clean up enemies? Do you pick something with enough power to be used as a primary? Or do you just take a melee weapon or something super light and focus on your primary instead? There's so many options for secondaries throughout COD history, and naturally, some secondary options have been pretty slept on. What is up, everybody? Jimmy or Chaos. Welcome to the COD History Series. In today's video, we're going to be talking about 10 pistols throughout the franchise that I feel were pretty slept on for one reason or another. So you let me know in the comments what you think the most slept on pistol in COD history is. Drop a like, and at number 1, I'm going to go with the LCAR-9 in Black Ops 3. I've seen a few people say this machine pistol was terrible. I remember when Black Ops 3 first came out, and a lot of people were calling it disappointing, but looking back, I think it had a lot of potential. It actually filled the role really well. It was a full auto machine pistol, 20 round mag, which is pretty small, and a moderate fire rate of 722 rounds per minute. It would take 4 to 5 shots to kill an enemy from scratch, and that would sometimes make people feel like it was a pea shooter. But when you think about what Treyarch intended the gun to be for, it was actually pretty good. It wasn't supposed to be a primary weapon. It was supposed to be a gun that finished off weak enemies and something you could use in your back pocket that could bail you out of sticky situations. So yes, the time to kill wasn't amazing, but it was still dealing 25 to 30 damage per bullet. So if you were face-to-face with enemies that you had already weakened, you could swap over to the LCAR, spray that 20-round mag at them, clean them up pretty quickly, and move on. And I think it was pretty slept on. Wasn't nearly as bad as a lot of people thought it was. Before we move on, guys, if you get anything from G2A.com, use code CHAOS. Get yourself some cash back. The link is at the top of the description. At number 9 today is the Strife in Black Ops 4. Sometimes the starting handgun is all you need. BO4 had a pick 10 system in its multiplayer, so a lot of players dropped their secondary weapons so they could use more perks or primary gun attachments. But if you wanted to bring a handgun with you, the Strife was a fantastic and very underrated choice. Pretty high fire rate cap, extremely low recoil, but each shot could do some hefty damage to an enemy player and easily clean them up if they were already hurt. There was also a bayonet attachment. Yep, a bayonet attachment for the Strife that could make it even more effective up close. Since Black Ops 4 had that really long time to kill, being able to instantly kill people with a melee attack, to me, was a valuable addition to your class. It was overlooked for something a bit more flashy or faster firing, but those who used it, they knew that it was a sleeper hit. I thought it was at least worth a little shout out. We never talk about that gun. It's actually pretty impressive. At number 8, the MR6 in Black Ops 3. Speaking of starting handguns, it was honestly kind of nuts now that I look back. Similar to Black Ops 4, a lot of people looked right over this one because the pick 10 system allowed players to drop their secondary weapon entirely, which a lot of people did in Black Ops 3. So they could load their primary weapons up with a whole lot of attachments. But the MR6 had a lot going for it. Basically a futuristic version of the Black Ops 257, meaning it came loaded with a 20-round mag, a very high fire rate cap, no recoil, and a pretty respectable time to kill if you could stay on target. It also had an absurd time to kill if you were running it in akimbo mode, and I remember there being a handful of players back in Black Ops 3 days who would actually run the MR6 as their primary. It was a tough play style to get good at, but it was viable thanks to those insane base stats of the weapon. At number 7, the 1911 in Black Ops 3. Now, if you use the 1911 in this game, you know it was actually kind of broken. Due to the fact that it was added so late in the game's life cycle, a lot of people never knew that it was broken, and they never really got a chance to use it. Well, actually, they did because it was a supply drop. They never got a chance to experience it firsthand and understand why it was busted. In case you didn't know, the 1911 was added to Black Ops 3 supply drop loot pool in May of 2017, just a few months shy of Black Ops 3's 2-year anniversary. Despite being the same dinky-looking handgun we've seen a million times in Call of Duty, it did insane damage. It was statistically the best pistol in the game. This version of the 1911 dealt up to 50 base damage, made it capable of killing with just 2 bullets, despite having a very high fire rate cap and super low recoil. I don't really know why Treyarch decided to give the 1911 the damage profile of the Desert Eagle, but they did. It was pretty nuts. There was a downside, 7-round mag, but if you threw on extended mags, it would jump up to 14. You could run around 2-tabbing people like it was nothing. So again, if you use the 1911, you know how busted it was in this game. But if you didn't play Black Ops 3 beyond May of 2017, you might have never known it was added to the game at all. At number 6, the Stallion 44 in Infinite Warfare. Classic 6-shot revolver that a lot of players were excited to see get added to Infinite Warfare. But when we finally got our hands on it, we realized it wasn't really a traditional revolver. I think that turned people off. If you fire it from the hip, it gradually tightened its hip fire spread, which was pretty neat as a trait. And then when you aim down the sights, The fire rate was reduced, which could get a little annoying, but the power behind each shot more or less made up for it. So on one hand, it was frustrating that it fired so slowly when aiming down the sights, so you couldn't spray it up close like a lot of people would do with the 44 mag in Modern Warfare 2 or Modern Warfare 3. But on the other hand, being able to fire super quickly from the hip meant you could zip around, feel like Clint Eastwood as you pop people from around corners without actually ever zooming in on them. It was a gimmick weapon, I agree. Not much of a traditional revolver, but I think it had a solid fun factor. I think it was worth mentioning. And speaking of revolvers in Infinite Warfare, now we arrive at the top 5, and we're going to go with the Hailstorm in Infinite Warfare. It looked like a revolver, but it was actually a 3-round burst pistol. And a lot of players immediately wrote it off because of how bizarre it was. But if you actually put some time into learning how it functioned, you quickly saw it was a beast. Extremely low recoil, for a burst pistol at least. Pretty intimidating one burst kill range. Yes, the ammo capacity was limited, but the reload animation, it was fast. There were several attachments and perks you could equip to help offset the time you would have otherwise spent reloading. Maybe it's because Infinite Warfare wasn't as popular of a game. But I feel like if the Hailstorm was put in a different game, it would have been a different story. Yes, it was a strange design, or maybe people were just salty it wasn't a traditional beefy revolver, but I think it was super slept on. If this gun had been in Black Ops 3, it would have been a fan favorite. I truly feel that way. At number 4, the BR9 in Modern Warfare Remastered. Now, I know we don't really like to talk about the DLC weapons that were added to MWR, but if we're going to talk about pistols from COD history that were slept on, we have to. This was the very last DLC pistol added to Modern Warfare Remastered. While it looked like a classic Luger, it functioned more like a Deagle. The BR9 would hit for 50 base damage, meaning it could two-tap people with no stopping power, had a pretty hefty 8-round mag, but the trade-off for that power and ammo capacity was a lot of visual recoil. The gun didn't actually kick that much, but when you pulled the trigger, your character's hand would fly straight up in the middle of the screen, so even though your aim wasn't moving that much, it was basically impossible to stay on target for more than 2 shots at a time because you would literally not be able to see the target. But with that being said, it was great for tagging people once or twice, dropping them, especially since the stopping power on it, you could deal up to 60 damage per shot. That was enough to instantly kill people in hardcore modes and take a giant chunk of their health and core. So due to the BR9 being a DLC weapon in the game, and a pretty late DLC weapon, a lot of COD players ignored it. But it was statistically a very powerful weapon, and I think it deserves a shout out. At number 3, the RW1 in Advanced Warfare. Okay, I know some of you longtime viewers are probably shaking your head at me right now because I've said many times that it wasn't any good. But this is a list of the most slept on pistols, meaning this is a list of pistols that had great potential but weren't fondly looked upon by the community. I mean, I think that describes the RW1. Even if you hated the pistol and thought it was trash, you have to admit the potential was off the charts. In fact, it's part of the reason why so many people hated it. Pistols were usually supposed to be weapons you could swap to when you're in a pinch, use them to finish off an injured enemy. The RW1, on the other hand, was a single-shot railgun that was horrible for finishing enemy players off because you literally had one shot to hit them before being stuck in this reload animation. So, if you were picking a handgun to help you out of a bind, that's not the gun for the job. But if you were using the RW1 as a railgun and not as a traditional handgun, you could see why Sledgehammer was going to do what they did. It was more than capable of killing an enemy player with a single shot. And while you could occasionally get hit markers, it was pretty consistent. You had to use the RW1 as it was intended to. I mean, like it was a one-handed sniper rifle. It's a pretty obnoxious way to play, but people did it. And I do remember all the snipers running around with it as their secondary. At number 2, the MP412 in Modern Warfare 3 2011. When it comes to beefy revolvers, the Modern Warfare series has a ton. This one was overshadowed by the 44 mag, which was unlocked right after it, and it's kind of a shame because it was really good. The damage was slightly lower than the 44, but it was still strong enough to drop somebody with 2 shots, and that reload animation was pretty fast. It was pretty snappy, which is a nice way to make it stand out. The recoil, it was a bit more manageable than the 44 mag, which could make it easier to hit those 2 shots and clean up the enemy player. So I'm not denying the 44 Magnum was probably the better pistol, but the MP412, it was really good. As far as COD revolvers go, I think it's actually one of the best in the franchise. It's just so forgotten because it was literally coupled right next to the 44 Magnum on the weapon select screen. And at number 1 today, the most slept on pistol in COD history has to be the TAC 45 in Black Ops 2. Black Ops 2 had the best spread of pistols ever. The Cap 40 was so strong that it was banned in competitive play. The B23R was one of the strongest burst weapons in Call of Duty. But the TAC 45, it was a little bit slept on. So I wanted to give it the top spot because I think this gun was way better than a lot of people knew. Even if you actively played Black Ops 2, there's a decent chance you didn't fully comprehend just how strong the gun was. Loaded with 10 rounds by default. I mean, it could deal, get this, up to 55 base damage, no recoil. It was a handgun with, I mean, good handling speeds, no recoil, dealing enough damage to kill people with 2 shots to the chest, and you have 10-round mag. You also had a high fire rate cap, super fast reload speed. Basically, the TAC had the power of the Deagle and the body of a Glock, and yet it was constantly getting slept on because of the cap and the B23R. But the TAC 45 was nuts. If you ask me, it's the single most slept on pistol in Call of Duty history. Everybody remembers Black Ops 2 for its pistols, but for no reason or some reason, nobody ever brings this one up. Let me know one slept on pistol that we slept on in this video and didn't talk about, and I'll see you guys soon.